views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hey there, good evening and welcome to the Bronx Buzz. You probably know this is Bronx Buzz program where we talk to writers and journalists and editors and photographers and filmmakers, anybody putting something out in the Bronx. And this evening we thought we'd dip into some of the archives and take a look at some of the things that have happened in the past. Our producer, Rebecca Hemick, selected these two segments. And so let's credit her and thank her for that. So the first segment is with Kirstyn Brendlen, who's a North Brooklyn reporter at a Brooklyn paper, but she also writes for amNewYork and did a 5-part series on grocery delivery services across the city and the impact that they're having on our neighborhood stores. And we thought it was pretty interesting, and Rebecca did in particular. So she said, oh, let's do this one. Take a look. To get started, we're going to go to a reporter. She is the North Brooklyn reporter at the Brooklyn paper. And so I'll say good evening to Kirstyn Brendlen. Nice to have you back with us.
Hey, Gary. Yeah, nice to be back. Thank you
And for anybody who says, but Gary, why are we talking to Brooklyn when it comes to the Bronx? Kirstyn wrote a fascinating 5-part series called The Race to Deliver, and it was featured in the Bronx Times. And it is a series about these grocery delivery apps, which are doing all kinds of interesting things to as you can see, there may be local store owners, and has implications for a lot of other things other than just maybe making it more convenient for people to buy groceries. So I will start this way, Kirstyn. We have learned a lot of things from the pandemic. Among them is that we can do things a little faster, a little more convenient. We can order online staples like groceries. However, you have unveiled a whole series of issues. Why don't you talk about the theory behind putting this together and what you had identified, and then we'll break down some of the issues.
Yeah. So it's funny. I actually can't take credit for the initial idea. That was actually from our publisher, CEO, Josh Schneps.
You're so kind. Thank you for doing that. That's okay.
Well,
That's appropriate.
I don't want to take credit for the initial idea, because I think that amNewYork was sort of among the first publications to be on the story. And that was sort of a great idea from him. And then we broke it down sort of between me and Gabrielle Holterman, who is the other reporter, photographer who's working on the series with me, and Rob, who's the editor of amNewYork. Sort of broke it out into like, what are all the big issues that we can see with it? Like how many parts should it be and what should each one cover? So right now what we have out, the first one is sort of just very general, like an introduction to like they're called quick commerce delivery apps, sort of as a concept for anyone who might not be familiar. The next one was a price comparison. So Gabby and I both went into grocery stores that are inside of their coverage areas.
Why don't we start there? Is it in plain language? Is it cheaper? Now we understand you're paying for some convenience and you're paying for delivery, and that's got to be factored in regardless of how they charge you, whether they charge you for the delivery or per item. Right. Does it make sense, or are you really better off, doing what you used to do, getting up, put your mask on, and go to the grocery store?
Right. It kind of depends. So a lot of the stuff was pretty comparable. And we tried to keep it sort of to staples. We looked at canned goods, eggs, milk, like bananas, that kind of thing. And a lot of it was either the same or pretty similar. Something that we both had noticed, though, across a couple of different apps was that the brands that they carry can be pretty different from what you have in the store. So if you usually are going to be looking for, right, like the store brand, anything, eggs, anything that's usually a little bit cheaper, they didn't have it. And then some of their products are just like a little fancier. That's sort of
Well,
like
that's very interesting. I'm just thinking conceptually how it happens. So they're going to buy from a big company that like so instead of going to and getting the Food Town apple juice, which may be a couple of cents cheaper, or even more than a couple of cents cheaper, they're going to get the Mott's, and that's what you've got to buy.
exactly.
Right. So in that's very interesting. Did you buy all the stuff, or did you just simply price it out? I was thinking
So
if we opened up, you could probably open up your own app and start sending out groceries.
right. So Gabby actually ordered the stuff. I tried. I was at a friend's apartment in Long Island City, and then once I got to the end of the process, discovered that I was actually outside of the range. So
Oh,
I
so you
was
couldn't get it.
spared from making
Oh,
the full
okay. I
order.
thought you could order the groceries for your friend's apartment and let him have all
Right.
that stuff.
I
Um,
was going to, but
so that's the first thing, is that it's comparable, but you may not get the selection that you want that might give you a chance to get it cheaper. So that's
right.
one thing. That is logical. The other thing, which of course is major, is the notion of is it competing with bodegas? And I'll use this example. If you go to Kingsbridge Road and you have all the street sellers, and the people
Hmm.
who have stores are saying, wait a minute, they're selling hats and jackets and sneakers and all these things that we're paying rent for. That's not right. Well, here's somebody who's selling all that stuff, maybe making it more convenient. We're paying for brick and mortar and employees.
Right.
And what happens? So how do we view that competition? Are the bodegas getting hurt? Which is of course vital in the borough of the Bronx. Tell me all about that.
Yeah. So the general consensus seems to be that it's kind of too early to tell. A lot of
Uh,
these places only launched over the summer. Bike, which is one of the ones that they just started opening in the Bronx, only launched in Manhattan in September. And another thing is that a lot of like sort of the neighborhoods where they're launching are sort of like younger and wealthier neighborhoods.
uh,
So it is pretty localized. Yeah. So like the reach that they have is pretty substantial at this point, but a lot of the launches were like in, Williamsburg, downtown Brooklyn, the financial district, the Upper East and West sides. But they are concerned about it. And I think the big thing is the speed is the thing that makes it like comparable to a bodega. Whereas like if you realize at home that you are trying to make brownies or something and you forgot eggs, you would maybe run down the block and pick up a carton of eggs and that'll take you 5 minutes. These apps allow you to do that same thing, but without leaving the apartment at all.
well,
Um,
but you're not getting it in 5 minutes, right? Or you
right.
are.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
it may
no,
ta I'm
so it's
assuming it
10,
takes a half a
15.
day, let's say, to place the order for them to process it and get it out. I thought, and I was talking with you about this before the show. Instacart is an interesting concept because rather than a company, like Amazon hires workers and they go out and they do the deliveries, Instacart just has people shopping. The stores don't even know that they're shopping, and they come and they deliver for you. That's another interesting concept for
Right.
for this whole thing, for what they're doing. Is that duplicated, or is that a single company that does that? In other words, are there other
Um,
companies that do it like that, as far as you know?
yeah, so I think I'm not the author. This is outside of my expertise.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
I'm sure that there are others that do similar things, and I also know, everyone knows like Fresh Direct, but they're delivering right from their warehouse in the Bronx.
Right, that's right.
I think like Stop and Shop has Peapod, but that's kind of the same thing where they're not sending people into stores; they're delivering to you right from their own
It's almost like a
stock.
way of branding their normal delivery.
Right.
In
Exactly.
that way. You mentioned Fresh Direct. Is that the granddaddy of them all, that they basically invented this concept? And of course, that has direct Bronx ties.
Right.
Is Fresh Direct the one that before the pandemic had said, "Hey, here's a way that you can order groceries"?
Yeah, so it seems that way to me. I know they launched in the early 2000s, and I know that they really had the monopoly on it in New York City for a long time. And I did, I drew the comparison in the first article because they are delivering from their own warehouse, which is the same as what these companies are doing, where they're delivering from their own much, much smaller and more numerous warehouses.
Hmm.
But yeah, that is, I don't know how long the typical fresh direct delivery takes, but with these apps, it's not even half a day. Most of them
Wow.
are within 15 minutes.
I have to
So it's much
interject, and it's
shorter.
not
Yeah.
directly part of your purview in this series. And our producer Rebecca had shown pictures of people on motorbikes, and
Hmm.
that's another thing that it puts all those bikes out there, and that's a whole traffic thing, and that's another thing to discuss. One of the other aspects of this that I thought was absolutely fascinating, had not considered, is the real estate notion and how it
Hmm.
affects the real estate market. And you wrote one of your 5 is on that. Could
Yeah.
you just maybe in 30 or 45 seconds explain what the effect of this is and could be as they
Hmm.
grow and develop on real estate?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that I focused on the most was sort of their ability to expand given the kind of real estate that they're looking for. So whereas, obviously a grocery store is looking for a significantly larger space, and a bodega might be the same thing. And both of those stores are also looking for somewhere where you have the space to make the store like welcoming and inviting for customers. Whereas these companies are looking for a relatively small space. They're called dark stores. They're basically like little warehouses. They're
That's
closed to the
right.
public.
Yeah.
So they want them in good, good neighborhoods. For their sort of what they're looking for, like dense neighborhoods with like their sort of target demographics. But they don't need to be right on the main street. They're not looking for a space that's going to be really welcoming to the public. So it is probably like a little bit cheaper and a little bit easier for them to find places to expand, which would be maybe more
Compared
difficult.
compared to somebody who wants to expand, a ShopRite, or in my
Right.
neighborhood is Garden Gourmet, which
Exactly.
started
Yeah.
out as a small place and then got bigger and bigger. They had to spend and do that. The last part of the series that's coming out is about how it affects the labor market.
Hmm.
Seems to me you're getting people jobs. I guess the trickle down would be that maybe you're cutting back if the grocery stores have fewer customers or fewer purchases, then they're going to cut back on their employees.
Yeah, so honestly, that is an angle that I had not thought about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a lot of what we have been sort of talking about as we're working on this last part is about, earlier in September, the city council had passed a package of bills. Those were protections for delivery workers. That focused on pay and how far people can travel and tips, access to bathrooms, because a lot of those companies, like if you're delivering for DoorDash or Uber Eats, you don't have an office or a centralized location you're going
That's
to. You're
right.
picking up from a restaurant and you're just sort of out all night. So we really want to look at like if those protections apply to these employees.
Hmm.
There's some differences because a lot of these companies, their employees are either full or part time. They're not like
Right.
gig workers. So we want to look at, how does that impact your work when you are full or part time rather than a
Right.
contractor?
Okay, thanks so much to Kirstyn Brendlen for the series and for coming on the Bronx Buzz. So let's do this. We're going to switch gears as we always do mid-show and do something wholly different. We're going to talk about a wonderful up-and-coming Bronx musician. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
Okay, we are going to reach into our October archive for this next segment. I neglected to mention that the segment with Kirstyn was from November. So we're going 1 month further back. But this is really exciting. She was a heck of a lot of fun and had a tremendous amount of energy. This is a Bronx native who is making a name for herself in the music industry. And nobody better to tell you about it than Séssi from October. Let's take a look. Say good evening to Séssi. Nice to have you with us.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
We're doing great, and we're doing even greater because you decided to join us. Now, let's see. Billboard called you one of 20 Latina artists to discover. They said before 2020 ends. It took us a little while, but we got to you. And that's because you've, let's see, you were featured on the cover of Especialito. That's
Yes.
and the photo, and there it is, a cover story. And you've done a lot of things. The most recent is putting out your third single, which is called 2C. Let's just talk a little bit about your background, a little bit about the Bronx, and what does growing up in the Bronx and how has it fueled the creation of your music?
Well, I'm Latina, Puerto Rican and Cuban from the Bronx. My mother is Cuban, my dad is Puerto Rican. And growing up as a kid, being from a Bronx native, New York hustle, I swear it has inspired me to be this artist today. My dad was a producer in the 90s for dance music, so freestyle, house music. So as a kid, I was in all the concerts. Since 5 years old, I used to perform all over the Bronx Puerto Rican Day Parade, all the pageants, the talent shows. My mother had me all over the place, and so did my dad, So I think that being a Bronx native, seeing J-Lo, right, in the stars, and also having like influences like La India and Mark Anthony, and these people, they're from New York, they're performing in Madison Square Garden. That always has given me an opportunity to say, you know what, they can do it, I can do it,
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic.
It sounds like you felt natural about it from the beginning. Like for some young people, they grow up and they learn, they say, oh, maybe I could do this. Sounds like you just said, this is who I am and part of my life from the get-go. And of course, I'm prejudiced about it. The Bronx fuels that. I mean, all the music came from here. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so blessed to be from New York and from the Bronx. And I tell you, from the way that I dress to my accent to my attitude to how I carry my energy, it all stems from the culture of what I grew up around,
Let's talk about the two prior singles. Let's talk about and then we'll talk about, and we'll even share a little clip of the 2C video, which is a lyrical a clip. But just tell me about the creation of the music. Do you create stuff on your own? Do you work with other people? Do you go in the studio and say, let's try it out? Do you have something ready to go? Let's talk about the process that gets you to where you are.
Well, the music process is my favorite thing. I write and I sing. I vocal produce as well. I'm very hands-on in all of my production and also vocal structure concepts for songs. I do work with writers. There was another writer that was a part of this who has been part of a lot of my projects and my singles that have released. I always love the process of collaboration. I think that music is formulated with different ideas and everybody just puts their 2 cents in, you know. But 2C was created, which by the way, I'm in the Milli Club now, you know. First I was in 1,000 streams, now I'm in the Milli streams. And
I
I'm just
saw
so
that.
blessed.
I mean, that's a million streams on Spotify. It's hard to
Yes.
imagine that number, isn't it? That all those people.
Yes.
But,
Yeah. We're almost at 2 million now, but
no.
you know, just being and even when Latin Billboard featured me, I mean, my dreams are coming true. Soon they're gonna be 15 million, 15 billion, you know, that's the idea. But creating this fan base that organically on even on Instagram and my fans and talking about spirituality and body positivity and Ducey is especially body positivity.
All right, I
You
was
know,
going to ask about let's talk about that, and then we'll throw to the clip. What is important to you? It's not only about making music, and certainly you would mind making a couple of dollars at it. That's nice, but you have other ideas, and this to me is also a Bronx story. This is who we are. We got to talk about what's important, right?
yes, you know, for me, I've always been very artistic. My favorite artist is Lady Gaga. I've always looked at her and said, you know what? She did it. I can do it. And I'm so inspired by her style, how she came up, right? Being from the city and just being expressive. And so this record, Tusi, is just like that. Like I'm very like alter ego. I like to have different alter egos in my music and just hypnotizing men, of course, because I'm all about the power of the woman power. So that's what Thusi's about. So it's a hallucination of a man who falls in love with a woman and we hook you guys. That's what we
Yeah.
do.
All right. I saw this for the first time earlier today. Yes, I'm hooked. Okay. To see from Séssi. She's from BX, the Bronx. Let's take a look.
Yes.
Tengo buena dieta, yo no me como cualquiera. Tus fantasías cobran vida con la nena. Me llaman bebé como si me conociera, pero no sabe qué le espera. Tú sí, cama y acción, ven y agárrame este booty. Entra en calor, ven y bésame la titis pa' la tensión. Tú no sabes qué te espera. Una conejita pero fiera.
All right, there it is. We gave him a sample. We want him to click Spotify and get the whole thing. But let's talk about body image and what is important to you for women. You think that we need an injection, so to speak, so women have a realization about it, right? Talk a little bit.
Absolutely. For me, being an artist, being a performer, I'm always constantly having to work on my body, eat the right things, look great for the camera, right? But I have a story too. Growing up, I'm Latina. We're thick in all the right places, right? And so I've always been that. I've always been chubby. I was always, overweight per se. And when I really dived into doing this full time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to lose all this weight. And I dropped, I was almost 200 pounds and I dropped to how I am now. And most people they look at me, they're like, what? You're so fit. How did you do it? And it's a mental thing. And I'm not saying that, thick isn't beautiful. It's great. It's absolutely beautiful. But I talk about body positivity because all of us, we love women. We have to love ourselves from different, standpoints. And for me, body positivity is owning who you are, owning your body and doing what you love,
And I'm going to inject looks are one thing, but health is another. And let's face it, I mean, we have an issue. I mean, I deal with issues here all the time with obesity, and so you can be a bigger woman or bigger person, but if being healthy is really the bottom line to me, that's the way it sounds. And you talk about eating right. I'm sure you work out a little bit, in order to be
yes.
able to do what you do. So it's not only it's always this way with the Bronx people. It's not only about entertainment. It's not only about, doing the thing, being out front, whatever. It's also about helping people improve their lives, right? I mean, that
Yeah.
is what the bottom line. Now, do you create a lot of stuff? Like, do you say to yourself, "Gee, I got 15 different ideas," or do you really work on one, track at a time? Or do you go in there and do you do it at home? Do you go into a studio?
I have a studio. Yeah, we have a studio. I have a production company. We have a studio. It's all about, for me, music is about energy. So I like to stay focused because us as musicians, we can get sidetracked. But for me, going out, hanging with friends, having these life experiences really, really help. Even advice with girlfriends and all that stuff, community really helps with my music. I'm always connecting with my fans too on horoscopes and spirituality, right? And that also helps me with my music as well. So that's essentially how we start. I'm living this life. I'm inspired daily. I come into the studio. We work on a beat, kind of like inspires the rhythm, right? And I go first with the melody. And then from the melody, then I dive down into the story. But everything is a process. First it's a start, and then it's a finish.
You know what really is interesting to me about that is that you reach out to a lot of people. You say you talk about horoscopes or other things that are interested in you, and then I'm a promotions and publicity marketing guy, and then you go and look and say, well, this is why I have 1 million, because I'm not just a music person, I'm a full person.
Correct.
And I'm presenting myself. We're presenting ideas. We're sharing ideas. These are the things I believe in, right? Am I hitting it right? That's where
it's the rawness, and I say that's the Bronx in me, right? That's how we finesse as people, right? Wherever we go, whether we're in Miami or LA, they hear us, they feel our energy. We got that energy, and that's what I like to do when I connect with my fans, which is why I do the horoscope, and I get really to get in tune with them when I do my lives. I give them good readings,
How should people connect with you personally? Should they send you an email, go to a website? What should they do?
I'd say Instagram. Follow me on Séssi Official. That's SESSI Official. And for my music for Spotify and YouTube, you can find me on there as well, Séssi, SESSI. But I do have some more music coming out and more English as well. So it's a both a balance, because I am both languages are my strong specialty.
So I'm English speaking, obviously. I'm going to do something, and you could turn me down if you want. Could you sing something, rap something, do something, anything right now?
Yeah, I can sing.
So we got about 30 seconds to do it. Go ahead.
Sure. The first single that we had coming out, I could sing a little snippets from that.
Good.
It's called Deja que te lleve.
You need a rhythm? I could do the rhythm.
Deja que te lleve a otro lugar. Tú sabes cómo es. Deja que te lleve a otro lugar. So pretty much I'm saying let it just flow.
Right.
Let you just flow.
You did that right in time. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bronx couldn't be prouder. We have a litany of great musicians, Latina musicians, go through generations. And Séssi is now right in there in a long line of great Bronx musicians. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Bronx Buzz. You're rocking with Séssi.
I never said it before. We are rocking with Séssi. All right, there you go. Unique personality. I'm guessing this won't be the last time you will hear from her. We thank Séssi. We thank Kirstyn Brendlen. And we also thank our producer, Rebecca Hemick, for selecting the pieces. And then we'll say goodnight. And what's going to happen next? You know what's going to happen next. We'll see you next week. Good night.